This is PPC Zone December 2025 B2B Outside the Box. I'm your host, Jill Saskin-Gales. I use the pronouns she and her. I'm a Google Ads coach and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. I created PPC Zone in 2022 to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. Before our next speaker, thank you again to Cookiebot by Usercentrics for sponsoring PPC Zone. If you're running ads in Europe, Google's consent mode is not optional anymore, and that's where Cookiebot by Usercentrics comes in to easily manage user consent on your website. And of course, it connects seamlessly with Google and Microsoft's consent mode, so you can gather more data to power your campaigns and get the best possible ROI. You can sign up for a free trial of Cookiebot by Usercentrics, plus 10% off your first 6 months, all while supporting PPC Zone by going to consent.ppc.zone. That's consent.ppc.zone. Next up in the zone is the inquisitive marketer. He specializes in campaign management, landing page design, and conversion optimization for B2B advertisers. I've also been trying to get him onto the virtual stage for more than a year, so I am thrilled to have him here with us at PPC Zone today to share 3 B2B Google Ads traps. Are these best practices wasting your money? It is with great pleasure that I introduce you to Aldwin Neekon. Welcome, Aldwin.
Hi, everyone. If your B2B Google Ads campaign is failing and you can't figure out why, it might be because you're doing everything right. I've worked with some really difficult Google Ads accounts where they've gone through several agencies and in-house people, and they were mystified about why their campaigns were failing. And in retrospect, I noticed something surprising about all of them. In every case, they had implemented best practices that almost always work in a B2C situation, but in their B2B situation, these same practices were causing big problems. So what do I mean by B2B situation? First of all, your target market is smaller, so you're getting lower traffic to your ads. You are not selling to millions or hundreds of thousands or thousands. You're targeting a really small number of specific decision makers. Second, in a B2B situation, your offerings are usually more complex. This is often the case for my B2B tech clients. The market doesn't even know what to search for because the offering is complex or innovative, and this happens. Maybe the category doesn't even exist yet because you're so new to the market. And third, what you're selling has higher prices and longer sales cycles, and these two things often go together. Expensive things usually take longer to buy, and in a business, this usually means they need the approval of a larger group, which again, takes time. Those are the characteristics of what I call a B2B situation. And in that context, I'm going to give you 3 examples of how best practices that almost always work in B2C can cause a B2B campaign to fail. The first best practice we'll look at is A/B testing. My first Google Ads client had originally hired me as a fractional VP marketing, but a few weeks into it, the pandemic hit, and the CEO said, Aldwin, forget about the long-term strategy work. We need leads now. I suggested running Google Ads, and he said, yeah, we're running Google Ads. We've done it. It doesn't work for us. We've done it a bunch of times. So I had to figure out why it hadn't worked. Well, it turns out one of the reasons, they'd spent months running A/B tests in their campaigns, waiting for statistical significance, waiting for the test to finish, but they had nothing to show for it because not enough traffic. So they weren't making decisions, they were paralyzed. In a B2B situation like this, you're not getting hundreds of clicks a day. You might get a dozen clicks. Waiting for months is not an option. So you need to go with an educated gut. Don't let A/B testing paralyze your B2B campaigns. You need to give Google Ads enough time to adjust when you change a budget or a bid strategy, but then you need to make a call and move on. And you can also use tools like Microsoft Clarity that show you what each visitor is doing so you can more quickly sense how to improve your ads or your landing pages, even with very low traffic. I use this tool all the time for every client. The second best practice to watch out for is beautiful content. A lot of B2B CEOs and marketers have B2C brand envy and want to create the kind of content that works really well for B2C brands, but this can backfire. Another client of mine had hired a really good creative agency who'd made them a beautiful, compelling video that they were using as a YouTube ad. It racked up hundreds of thousands of views and 0 conversions. Why? Because it was designed like a prestige B2C commercial. It was beautiful and intriguing, and it had this music that drew you in. And that's the problem. It drew everybody in, whether or not they were the target audience. So your content needs to be immediately clear about the problem that you solve, who you solve it for, and who it isn't for. You don't have to be boring, but you do have to get to the point, and you have to be attractive to your audience while somehow finding a way to be repulsive to everybody else. And sometimes that means you can't afford to do what B2C brands do. The final best practice to watch out for, targeting high volume, high intent keywords. Some of you may be asking, isn't this the whole point of Google Ads? High volume, high intent keywords. It is, but let me give you an example of how it can go wrong. Let's say you're an enterprise software company and your solution bundles whatever new technology that you have with a bunch of point solutions that already exist in other offerings. Some marketers might look at the high search volume for those point solutions and get really excited. Look at all this traffic, look at all these clicks. But those are not the customers you're looking for. Those searches belong to people looking for the cheap point solutions. You're selling enterprise software at a higher price point that does a lot more than just those things. So when this happens, you'll probably need to, first of all, avoid those searches. Find what those keywords are, find what those searches are, and avoid them, because they're just going to cost you money as clicks, and they're going to waste your sales team's time trying to qualify them. And then you'll need to step outside of your search campaign and generate awareness and educate the market about your innovation, about your category, so they'll know how to find you. So if your B2B Google Ads campaigns have been falling a little flat, take a look at some of the best practices that your teams have put in place and ask, are they appropriate for our business, or are they actually sabotaging our success? Reach me on LinkedIn or inquisitiveads.com, and we'll continue this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldwin, so much for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the Zone. You can find Aldwin on LinkedIn to learn more about B2B Google Ads. If you would like to apply to speak at PPC Zone, you can do so on our website. That's ppc.zone. Thank you one more time to our sponsor, Cookiebot by Usercentrics, for supporting our mission to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. You can learn more at consent.ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jill Saskin-Gales. Be sure to follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss our future events. I look forward to seeing you next time in the Zone.